How many studies have been done that, people that try to quit smoking cold turkey, some people do, most people don't, they start eating, right? They substitute it for something else.
Right. And one of the reasons why that kind of thing happens because they don't understand the needs that they're meeting. But once you start to understand why you do the things you do, then you can start seeing why this thing keeps happening in my life. And then when you start to create an alternative, you start to redefine in such a way that's meeting their needs, but it's meeting in a more healthy way. It's in a healthy way that it's meeting it.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Life Hacker Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Hacker Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better. I am joined by my co-host, Polish Peter. Dude, good seeing you.
Good seeing you too. So I have a cool intention for this particular episode. Want to know what it is?
Tell me.
To change you in a way that would never be like you, so you look totally different.
So I look different? Do it.
Everything. Look different. Maybe get you some, I don't know, maybe get you some hair or something, but change you in a way that's going to be lasting forever. You're not going to be the same person.
Wow. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I'm excited or scared here.
Well, you should be both. So listen, on the serious side of things, what we thought we are going to do on this particular episode, just me and Wojo here, to kind of give you some insights and help you create lasting change in your life. If you think about it, a lot of us look to go and create something different, right? Change something in our lives and start a new habit or new behavior or, start a new business, whatever it might be. And for whatever reason, it doesn't stick, right? For whatever reason, you go for a few steps and then you step 15 steps backwards or one step backwards. For whatever reason, you can't get it off the ground. So what is it? Why is this happening? So there's a formula actually to be able to go creating lasting change. And we want to share this with you today on this particular episode.
Yeah. So Peter and I are, we've learned a lot from Tony Robbins. Now, put aside whatever you think of him, whether you like him, whether you don't like him. This particular process, in fact, is actually really beneficial. Peter and I have both done training around it. And so we want to walk you through this process of creating change in your life, because, my guess is that you've tried to change something, maybe in yourself or somebody else. And like Peter said, it hasn't stuck. It hasn't gotten traction. You haven't been able to consistently do it for a long period of time. And so let's talk about how you do this. It's a 7-step process. And, if you're taking notes, you're going to want to write this down. If you're listening and you're driving your car, don't do that. You can kind of just listen through it and it'll make sense. And if, as you hear the steps, it's going to become relevant for you. And self-evident, because it's going to seem simple when we walk you through the steps, but most people miss one of these. Now, listen, even if you don't get all 7 steps and you don't do it in order, if you pick some of these, you'll be more effective than not having any of them. And so ideally, you're going to want to do all of these in order, but I still want you to just grasp the concepts behind them, man. So here we go. So the first step 1, is to understand and appreciate the world of the person you are trying to change. Now, here's what you got to realize. Before you can ever influence yourself or influence anybody else, you have to know what already influences you or what already influences them, because that's the input you're going to have. That's the effect you'll have. And you got to meet them where they are. You love on them where they are. And then only upon knowing that, knowing what's important to them, knowing what they value, knowing what they think about certain things, you use that. And we'll get into the second step in a second, but we use that as a foundation for all of the actions and the influence that we're going to use.
And here's the thing that's so important about this. And I do this with all of my students when we get into coaching. I'm getting curious. I'm really trying to understand their world, like Wojo said, their values, what's important to them, how they meet their needs, what are their needs. And same thing with you. If you think about it for yourself and you look at some of the things that you were able to change in the past, I would say it happened because in some shape or form, you did it based on the world that you have created, that you understand, that you appreciate that world for yourself, whether it's the needs. We talked about the 6 human needs on this particular podcast before. So we'll go look at some of the
we'll have them put it in the show notes if you want to go listen to that one.
Yep. And what ends up happening is when you understand and appreciate the world, you understand what makes the person tick. You understand what makes the person do the things that they do. And same thing with yourself. So I'll give you an example. If one of your, let's say, top human needs is need for significance, you need to be appreciated, you need to be valued, you need to feel important. Then why is that important? Well, it's important because when you are looking to create a change for something else, you need to make sure that that is evident in that particular area as well. Because think about it this way, if in the new thing that you're going to be doing, let's say, you are working in a 9 to 5 and you feel really appreciated there. You feel like you're very important because you have a high-ranking job, or people appreciate you, the boss appreciates you, and things like that. And now you want to start your own company, and you go in there, you're working by yourself, and nobody's appreciating you. Nobody is there to pat you on the back and those kinds of things. Guess what? It's going to be very difficult for you to transition into that particular area of your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. And so this is, frankly, dude, I think this is one of the, if not the most important step to all of them, because all of them stem from you really knowing this person. Again, whether it's you or somebody else, I'll give you another example. Let's say that you are trying to get healthy and you want to start going to the gym, and you have a high need for connection. And that would mean you'd be most successful, for instance, by finding somebody else to work out with, because you'd have that connection, right? If you know you're somebody who's driven by certainty, that would mean you probably want to have all of your meals planned in advance, and you want to have all of your workouts, written out, and exactly what you're going to do. And so you got to use this stuff and this is getting into the step 2, which is getting leverage, right? Using the information here's a mistake that people make, I think, Peter, is like, they'll either try to change themselves or they'll try to change somebody else, and they work totally against their nature. They said, no, you shouldn't do that, or you need to do this. Well, I think that's simplistic, and it's not effective. Like you have to kind of meet that person where they are, including, and I say that person, but I'm talking about you. If you're trying to change yourself as well. Without that, like all the other steps are not going to have the effects you're looking for.
Yeah. So, second step, and by the way, what we're talking about here, it's really important and impactful actually when you have relationships as well. Relationship with your spouse, with your significant other, with kids or whatever, when you're having those conversations, guess what? A lot of times when you are in an argument, one of the biggest reasons is because you do not fully understand their world. So those are things that are very important as well. So let's go on to step number 2, like Wojo said, about getting leverage. Why is it important for you to get leverage? Well, it's important because you need to be able to go and use that leverage point, in such a way that moves the needle, that shifts that particular person or with yourself to go and, move in a different place, move in a different way, to be able to go and start creating that lasting change. If you think about it, how you move a big boulder by yourself? We need to get leverage on that boulder, right? If there's a huge rock, you probably need to get like a smaller rock next to it, get a big piece of wood, and just create the leverage to move that boulder. So since you've been, let's say, living with yourself your whole life, or the person that you are working with has been doing that X habit for a long time, you're going to need to create some leverage point to be able to get them to shift to the other way of doing things. I'm trying to think of any kind of examples that we can give them. Do you have anything on your mind?
Yeah, man. Well, I want to go back to the metaphor you just gave with the stick moving a big boulder, right? I want everybody right now, if you're old enough to remember this, the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, right? And Coyote would chase Roadrunner around, and he's trying to move boulders. And I want you to think of that. Imagine like a seesaw, right? When you have that fulcrum, the middle point where the wood rotates up and down, and you have a boulder on one side and you're on the other side, and you're pushing down, and you want that boulder to move. Being really good at step 1, which is understanding and appreciating their world, moves that leverage point closer to the boulder, so it becomes easier for you to push. Not understanding and appreciating the world moves that fulcrum point closer to you. And so the application of force has to be so much harder. And chances are you'll never connect with them because you haven't understood their world. And so when it comes to getting leverage, you're knowing what's important to somebody. So for instance, I once worked with a client who I knew that the thing they wanted more than anything else was to be in a relationship. They had a huge need for connection, and yet at the same time they were struggling with overeating. And this particular person was a nurse, and she would go into the break room and she would just pig out on chocolate and candy and snacks and cookies, because I guess, this is a thing that nurses do. They just fill the break room with all kinds of deliciousness that is hard to resist, right? And I confronted her. I had a discussion with her. I didn't tell her, but I asked her. I'm like, well, hey, I said, what's the kind of guy that you would most be attracted to? And she explained him, and she mentioned that he's healthy and that he eats good and everything else. I said, that's wonderful. What kind of woman would he be attracted to? And she realized in that moment that she herself was sacrificing what was most important to her, which is the relationship, because of this short-term desire and temptation of food that wasn't healthy for her. So what I did is I got leverage over her. And I want to make sure we're clear here. Leverage is not manipulation. Right. Manipulation is something that is harmful to someone. Leverage is something that you're using as a positive force, as an amplifier to help this person, whether it's you or somebody else, get what they really want, right? Not the stuff that's going to prevent that from happening. And so you're looking for leverage. What's important to this person? How can you use that in a way that serves them?
So like Wojo said, that's why it's so important for you to, in step one, understand the world, because you can use that what you find in the understanding the world to use that as a leverage point to be able to shift that relationship, shift that behavior, or whatever it might be. So good on step number 2. So let's move on to step number 3. But before we do that, dude, did you just fart?
Did I what?
Did I just fart?
No.
What? Well, that leads me to point number 3. You gotta interrupt the pattern. One of the ways of interrupting that pattern, if those of you who are watching this video, notice like what his face expression was like. What the hell are you talking about, right? I mean, granted, Wojo farts a lot, but that's here and there. But here's the thing. The next step is you literally have to break or interrupt that pattern. Why is that important? Well, it's important because think about it. If you have certain habit, or you have certain way that you've been doing something, or the person's been doing something, it kind of becomes subconscious sometimes. It becomes this automatic thing. So you have to start breaking that pattern in order to get out of, doing it some other way, kind of a thing. So how you use it? Well, you can use humor. You can challenge person. You can say surprising, like maybe emotions, or say different language, like, it's kind of Tony, for instance, he uses very colorful language a lot of times to break somebody's pattern, to literally interrupt their emotion. If you think about it, if you ever been with a 5-year-old kid, a boy or girl, I don't know, and they're in trouble, and they know they're in trouble, have you ever experienced where the kid all of a sudden said something funny or farted or did something stupid joke? All of a sudden the mom or dad can't start laughing, and all of a sudden they kind of forget what were they really mad about. Well, it's a 5-year-old kid basically interrupting the pattern. So it is so important for you to be able to come up with some of these ideas, to be able to break the pattern for yourself or help others in order to keep this lasting change moving forward. Do you have anything to say about that?
And I think this is important, and there's more applications than you mentioned. So for instance, let's say that you have a habit of stopping at Starbucks every morning on your way to work and grabbing some fruit, whatever, frothy, fruity, super high calorie drink, and you're trying to become more healthy, and you're getting bagels and croissants and muffins and everything like that, right? Well, a way of interrupting that pattern could be to simply just take a different way to work every day, like to avoid the temptation. If you are let's say you typically have a certain reaction to something. Let's say, and to me, like interrupting the pattern can also be, what are you doing in your environment to make it more difficult for you to do something like that? So let's say, for instance, you're an overspender, and you max out your credit cards, and you have a hard time with impulse control. Well, I believe, and this isn't technically the same, but it's a very similar application, would be like, well, okay, I'm gonna decrease my credit limit. I'm going to freeze my credit card in an ice tray in a Ziploc bag in the freezer. I'm going to avoid the store or give myself a, some sort of like, hey, I'm going to agree to a 24-hour cool off period and then decide if I still want that thing. Like, I think that there's also some practical aspects to this that doesn't the breaking the emotional pattern that you go down is one way to do it, but I think there's also environmental ways to break that pattern too, that you can help yourself kind of avoid like some of those issues that you're struggling with.
Yeah, and just like I said, we have fun with it. I think it's being creative, having fun with it is going to help you to start breaking that pattern. Like Wojo said, I mean, there's emotional ways. Think about it. If somebody comes that that constantly they come to you and they tell you how their life sucks and they get in a certain state, right? They're obviously not very happy when they talk about it, how their life sucks, so they're a certain way. So maybe in those moments, you can help them break that pattern by saying something, by doing something, or whatever the case may be. And then on the long term, when you're trying to, change the habit, like Vojo was saying, whether it's Starbucks or it's, some other form of big habit that you're doing, literally consciously do something different. Think about it this way. If you were, for instance, trying to change your morning routine a little bit, one simple little thing could be, when you get out of bed and you go brush your teeth with your right hand, brush with the left hand, see how it happens. And there are so many creative ways to go and breaking that pattern to be able to take you to the next stage, because it is so important to be able to break this pattern before we get to the next step. Because when you break that pattern, it opens up the possibility for you to be able to go and do step 4, which is basically the problem that you're dealing with, the problem that, you thought that you couldn't solve or whatever. Now we are able to be creative and come up with a new solution in very solvable terms. What do I mean by that? You're going to be able to start seeing how to solve this problem in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's important because a lot of times we look at an issue, a challenge, in a way that is disempowering, and we find ourselves caught there instead of looking at alternatives. Like, how else could we look at this? How else could we consider this? That would be more empowering. And why don't we kind of combine step 4 and step 5 for the purposes of discussion here? Because, so step 4 is defining the problem in solvable terms, right? Mm-hmm. And then step 5 is creating all empowering alternatives, because once you define the problem in solvable terms, the next step is to create those alternatives. So understanding and framing whatever challenge you have in a way that's going to help you versus hurt you, I think is crucial, because otherwise you just end up stuck. You end up with like, I'll never get out of debt. I'll never, be thin. I'll never have a good relationship, like these kinds of beliefs.
Right. So if you remember at the step 1, we talked about understanding the world, which you've probably found out what their values are, what, the needs that they're meeting and things like that. So now in the step number 4, based on the needs that they need to meet, you can redefine this problem in more solvable terms. So if it's, need for significance, now when we were looking to, like in my example, I was talking about starting a new business, setting it up in such a way that is going to meet your needs for significance, right? Maybe every single time you are, going and doing something in your business, you share it with somebody that you really value, and their job is basically to help you see how, you're moving in the right direction, or helping you, or giving you some advice, or maybe, giving you a little like, good job, there you go, keep it going, man, you got this. I know it's tough or whatever it might be, but surround yourself with a community that's empowering you, right? People around you that's empowering you. Vojo's thing when he was talking about going to the gym, alternative, if you've tried to basically, start working out and it's not working, you've been doing it in the house and you're trying to work out in the gym, guess what? It's not meeting your need for connection because you're there by yourself. So redefining something in solvable terms, maybe it makes going to a class in a gym. Now you have something that's solvable, meets your needs for connection, and you're able to go and get out of that old thinking of, well, I can't do it, this is not going to work, I tried everything, that kind of stuff. And then, go ahead.
I think what you said is really important, because if you look at everything you do, or at least a lot, I don't know about everything, but it's to meet one of these needs. And so as you're looking at these things that you're trying to change, if you can figure out what need you are trying to satisfy, now you can step into the fifth step, which is creating alternatives that are empowering and creating empowering alternatives. And so let me give you an example. Like, let's say, for instance, let's say you go out to eat all the time and you have a problem with, and this is affecting your wallet, it's affecting your health, and you figure out, like, gosh, like, I'm really out here because I like uncertainty. Like, I like different meals. I like going to different restaurants, trying different things. Maybe there's a little connection there too, because you start talking to the people around you, and you have a dinner with your spouse, and you guys can connect and not have to worry about dishes or cleaning up and cooking. And so, okay, that's awesome. How could you also meet that need in a way that is not destroying your wallet and having a negative effect on your health, right? So that's where you're defining the problem in solvable terms and creating those alternatives. Like, how else can you meet those needs and in a better way, a way that's going to serve you rather than hurt you? We're not telling you to just stop doing that. Like, because this is where, for instance, like, how many studies have been done that, people that try to quit smoking cold turkey, some people do, most people don't, they start eating, right? They substitute it for something else. Now, I'm not sure whether maybe it's a step in the right direction, but maybe not. I mean,
Right.
I don't know they're both unhealthy, right?
Right. And one of the reasons why that kind of thing happens, because they don't understand the needs that they're meeting. They don't understand the values that they're looking for, their view of the world and things like that. So they go on from, let's say, smoking to eating, or from drinking to, something else, or, from drinking alcohol to drinking soda, and whatever it might be. So, but once you start to understand why you do the things you do, why do I constantly keep doing that? What's the needs? What's the values that I'm trying to meet? Then you can start seeing why this thing keeps happening in my life. And then when you start to create an alternative, create a more, redefining this problem and things like that, you start to redefine in such a way that's meeting their needs, but it's meeting in a more healthy way. It's in a healthy way that it's meeting it. So because you can meet all those needs and the values in both good ways and the bad ways. So when you start to understand that, you start to come up with some creative solutions to be able to go and, rock this out, make that change last. So good on this one?
Yeah. One other thing I just want to say here is I do want to accentuate the need for awareness. Like, there's really there's a requisite, or there's a requirement for you to be aware of why you're doing this stuff for this to kind of be most effective. Like, you got to really kind of unpack it a little bit and say, like, why do I like this? Why do I always fight with my spouse over this one topic? Like, how else could we address this? How else could we do this in a way that's more helpful for us?
Hey, so let me interrupt this episode. And before we get back into it, here's what I want to share with you guys. One of the things that we do throughout the year, all over the country, is we do this event called Business Builder Event. This is the event where we literally outline, help you figure out and create a business that you love and a business that support your life. One of the things that we found over the years that many people become basically a slave or work an employee to their business, and they're working so much in their business that they don't actually get to live their life. And in this particular workshop, we help you redesign that, a business that supports your life. So what do you want to have for them, Wojo? What do we have for them because of that?
Man, well, Peter, because they are loyal listeners, and I know they're tuned in every week, and they've told everyone in their life about the Life in Air Show podcast, we have a very, very special offer for you. Now, by the way, I don't know how long we're going to offer this, so this isn't forever. But if you go to lifeinair.com right now and you go to the events tab and then you go to the Business Builder Workshop, you can, when you pick the event you want, when you go to that checkout page, there's a little place right there. It says enter promo code. And guess what? We have a promo code for you for 50. That's 50% off the ticket for the Business Builder Workshop by entering the promo code podcast. podcast into the promo code field. Instantly, you'll get a 50% savings. You'll see it right there on the screen, and you will be registered for that event. And here's the cool thing. You will be off to the races to create a life and a business that complement each other for the first time, maybe ever. And it's amazing.
One more thing I want to share with you before we jump back into the episode is this. One of the participants at our recent podcast, he was in a hot seat. We do these hot seats in front of the room, and we kind of dissect their business. And one suggestion that he got them, he made the change, went home, made the change, and pretty much within a few months went into stage 4, meaning into his business that the business basically supported his life. The income that was coming, the cash flow that was coming into his business, by making that one change, started living in a way that he doesn't have to work for the business works for him. So I would encourage you guys, head over to the website, learn about this event, type in podcast, and we'll see you on the next event. Now, let's get back into the episode.
All right. So step 6 is condition it. What does that mean, man?
Well, you got to think about it this way. Any kind of habits that you have in your life, you've been doing it over and over and over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So you basically condition this thing that you're doing in order for this thing to become a habit. So now if you just do it once or twice, it's not going to work. You have to figure out a way to do this thing, to condition it, to keep doing it over and over again. So now it becomes part of you, becomes part of your nervous system, becomes part of your habit, basically. And a lot of times in the circles that we're in, they're talking about, there's been books written about it. You got to do at least 21 days or 40 days or whatever it might be. Not so sure that's really true, because it all depends on the space. How often do you do it? So if you have to do it 10 times a day, this particular thing that you're trying to change, 21 days might not necessarily be necessary. Did I say not necessarily be necessary?
I'm not sure what you said
I've
there,
just
man.
conditioned
I
myself.
just nod my head usually, and I don't really understand.
How many times can you say necessary very fast? But think about it this way. You start to have to condition this. So when it comes to going to the gym, how can you set yourself up that you are going to be doing this every day, right? What do I need to do to make this more habit-like?
Can we combine this with step 7? Because I'm not sure. The conditioning it, I think, is also related to the 7th step, which is creating an empowering environment. And now that I actually think about it, like some of the things I said earlier about driving a different route to work or not having, bad food in the house or freezing your credit card, could be construed as being step 7 in environment. But when I think of conditioning, man, how are you anchoring this activity? And we'll tie this into the environment. For instance, there was, for a while there was something called, and maybe it's still out there, it's called I think it's like a complaint-free day or something like that. And what they did is they wore, if you guys remember, those little silicone wristbands, that you get, and you put it on, and it's a visual reminder to you that, hey, I'm gonna not complain today. I'm gonna try not to complain today. And I think when the way it worked is when you complained, and I'm gonna mess this up because I haven't gone through it myself, but you basically take it off one arm and put it on the other arm, and that's your notification, hey, I complained. And so you find these little triggers to anchor yourself into that activity, and that's related to the environment. It can be something for you personally, or it can be an environment, like we talked about before, not having junk food in the house, driving a different way to work. Maybe you let's say you have a bad program you're trying to change in terms of saving money, and so you realize hey, I'm gonna put this on auto draft, and it's gonna automatically go in there. That's kind of in changing your environment to help that kind of stick. And so I think conditioning it really is, it's just that you just got to find those little triggers and anchors in a way that remind you or focus you in that direction you want to go.
Right. And the important word in this thing is conditioning it. That is, and think about it this way. At the beginning, if you set this up so it's meeting your needs, the values, that aligns with those values, right? It's going to be a little bit easier for you to go start conditioning, because think about it this way. If I'm going to the gym and my big need is need for connection, and I have a friend in a gym that's going to the gym at the same exact time, or there is a class that I already made a couple of friends in there that, they're looking for me, expecting me to be there. Going into those classes is going to be probably a lot more, impactful, beneficial for you to show up there, right? So, but the important thing is at the beginning, you're going to have to consciously condition that need. You're going to, interrupt this, like we were talking about pattern, and literally, okay, I need to go to the gym right now and get in a car and drive and those kinds of things. And before you know it, think about it this way. When you drive a car, at this point, if you've been driving for more than, I think, 3 to 5 years, you probably don't even think about driving it because it became subconscious. Your automatic nervous system basically took over and you're just doing it. Wojo, at this particular point, how many times have you driven to the gym and you're like, I didn't even realize I'm going to the gym, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it became part of you. So that is really important to condition this thing. And you have to do it, I would say, so many times that it gets to a point where you just don't feel like you're forcing yourself. It just happens. It just like you want to do it, or it happens, or you're looking forward to it, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, one other thing, man, is I think you gotta, this is a phrase you like to use, like hack yourself.
That's right.
And
how you say it?
Hack yourself.
See? By the way, notice Wojo is interrupting his pattern. He's trying to sound like me. Good luck. It's not going to happen, man. There's a certain person, but right. One day, maybe one day you'll get there.
Well, Peter, I just have to interrupt the pattern and decide to define it in solvable terms, and I'll be good to go.
The solvable terms. Okay, continue. Since I rudely interrupted you, now go ahead. Hack yourself. Yes.
So let's say, here's an idea that, and this is one of our buddies, JP, has done this. He was trying to get more fit, and he found that he would never take the time to work out. He'd never, he'd always, something else would always come up. Maybe you can relate. And he said that what he did is he realized, like, why don't I just piggyback it on something else I always do? And so this is true story. What he said, that whenever he goes to the bathroom, he has to do 10 chin-ups, and that's that. So every time he goes to the bathroom during the day, he has to do 10 chin-ups. And what he found is, like, when he linked it to something habitual that he already does, he includes that. Like, so find this little way to do something simple like that, and like it's pretty cool. Like, let's say, like, every time you decide to eat, you commit to taking a 5-minute walk after, right? Or and I'm not, this isn't just for this, but let's say every time you make a phone call, you look at how much time you spent on the phone, and you're gonna listen to an audiobook for the same amount of time, or find something that is that you can combine like that. Is a little hack to do that. I also like the idea of visual cues and reminders. And so maybe you have something on the mirror in your bathroom that reminds you of something. Maybe you use the silicone band. It's a necklace. It's something that is a visual cue for you. There's also audible cues. You can use smell, touch. Like, there's all kinds of different cues you can use that you can anchor things with. But just find as many ways to steer yourself down that path, both within yourself, but also within your environment as well, to help you do that.
Yeah. To JP's point, so did he stop going to the bathroom altogether then?
Yeah, right. He just started wearing diapers.
Yeah. No, but listen, one of the things that I want to point out too, I think, because we're kind of combining step 6 and 7, I want to take the step 7 a little bit one step further to what Wojo was saying, is that when that change, whatever you're doing, let's say going to the gym, or stop drinking and you go and do something healthier and things like that. I think it's important in step 7 to take this and attach it, anchor it to something that's bigger than you, to higher purpose, the bigger goal that you have, the vision that you're going after. Because, why am I doing this, what I'm doing, kind of thing. When you ask yourself the question, why is this important to me? Why am I doing this? And you anchor it to that bigger reason why you're going after this. Now the effect of it sticking, it gets a lot bigger, right? Why am I going to the gym? Why am I doing this? Well, because I want to be able to, when I'm 7 years old, to be able to lay down on the floor with my grandkids and play with them, and then get up without any assistants and things like that. I want to go run with my grandkids, those kinds of things, and picturing it. If you're a visual person, you start picturing what that looks like and things like that. So when you relate that to that bigger change, the higher purpose, all of a sudden, all these steps that we've outlined and how we go about doing them becomes that much more impactful. And that allows you to basically shift your behavior, create the lasting change that you're looking forward in your life.
Well, I also think of this, man, like your vision, right? Your vision is what gives you also step 2 in leverage, and allows you to condition it. So I think they kind of tie together a little bit. So that's why we covered some of these steps kind of together. Yep. But let's review them real quick. Step 1, understand and appreciate the world. Step 2, get leverage. Step 3, interrupt the pattern. Step 4, define the problem in solvable terms. Step 5, create empowering alternatives. Step 6, condition it. And step 7, create an empowering environment. There it is.
Yep. So go listen. Here is my assignment for you listening to this episode. Think about something that you want to have changed in your life, shift in your life. I don't like using the change really, because I don't think we necessarily need to be changed how we are as humans.
I like improve,
about
man.
Shifting. I like the shift, right? Because anything that we're doing in life, we're literally shifting over to doing something else. But in regards to that, because I think towards the end of the episode, pick something in your life, something simple. I wouldn't go like, I want to change careers, but something easy,
just one thing,
simpler, right? Not that big of a deal. Yep. And incorporate those 7 steps that we've been talking about and see how it works out. You might be surprised that you're going to be able, when you start incorporating those steps, you might be surprised how you're going to be able to create a change, which is going to give you some more leverage, going to give you some more confidence to be able to take on the bigger things. And by the way, when we talked about the vision and life on there, whether you guys realize it or not, a lot of these steps are in your visions. The way we have been putting them together for you. Well, the way you've been putting them together based on what we teach at the 3-day Gear Lab giveaways. And go take on one thing in your life, incorporate those steps, and see how you are going to create this lasting change, lasting shift.
Well, and along those lines, remember, as you change, then you also change the people around you as well and have an influence on them. Speaking of which, please give us a thumbs up, give us a review, a rating, and share this with somebody else who you think could use some of these steps in their own life to help them make changes as well. As always, we will see you next week. Everyone, take care.